Hi there, and welcome to the award-winning Ed Brown Show. I'm your host, Kamari Richmond, and we are continuing our conversation with Mr. David Grogan, who is running for Bowie City Council, District 3. I got it right.
You nailed it. You nailed it. Bowie City Council, District 3.
Yes, and so I'll just kind of do a little recap for those who may miss the first segment. What excites you about politics and this time now?
Well, I've always been excited about politics, but I'm excited about the opportunity to help our community. I'm a diehard community advocate. I'm a diehard community servant. I consider myself a professional volunteer simply because my passion for helping our community and making our community a much better place to live.
And so let's start with, we talked about children the last section, and I just want to pick up a little bit there. Children and health care is very, very important because we want to do a lot of focus, but we don't talk about the health care. And I want to talk about health care with the seniors and those, the disabled, but children and health care. How do you plan on bridging that gap?
Well, that's going to be fairly easy for me. Well, as you know, my background is actually health, wellness, and fitness, which is something that I started at 13 years old. I spent majority of my life dealing mostly with fitness, but nowadays my focus is wellness, and my expertise is wellness. And my career has been law enforcement. But most people really don't realize in the core of me, I'm an educator. And I believe I'm an educator because my grandmother was an educator. So I found myself teaching something my entire life. And so now I think it's important, I'm going to teach how do we have a healthy community. And despite my law enforcement career, there's a reason why I spent 2 terms on the City of Bowie Education Committee, because that's where I wanted to be. Public safety is a given. My expertise in public safety will be paramount when needed, but I think education is much more important. Our kids getting healthy, our communities getting healthy. I think everything starts with the kids. When the kids are healthy, they become healthy adults. Other people become healthy adults, and eventually we become a healthy community.
And you just touched on something key. Not are you just an advocate for children and everyone getting healthy, and I have to laugh because you always said, if it tastes good, don't eat it.
That's my answer. When people say, well, what about dieting? Tell me the special diet. Well, it's not complicated. If it tastes good, don't eat it.
And
all good taste comes from butter, salt, and sugar. So if it tastes good, it's a combination of butter, salt, and sugar, which is going to run up your cholesterol level, heart conditions, and diabetes, and all that.
Okay, health and wellness. Here we go. And so, that's important for children, that's important for seniors, that's important for everyone. And so now we talk a lot about mindfulness. So where do you put mindfulness and being positive and progressive on the campaign? So where do you put that on the campaign? That we have to be more mindful of what we put in our bodies, of who we put into politics, but where are you on that front?
I think our campaign is all about education.
Okay.
It's all about education, and we're going to educate, because there's a reason why we do everything. We are the most highly visible campaign, probably that anyone has ever seen. We're going to stay visible. We're visible on the ground, we're visible on social media, and everything is for a reason, because we're going to use our visibility to teach the community. Every chance we get, if you follow me on social media, at least daily, I'm sending something, because we have to transform the minds of people. Everything starts in the mind, and we have to teach people. Sometimes I see things, I saw something today on Facebook, and I had to explain the difference between an optimist and a pessimist. You see, an optimistic person thinks different than a pessimist. I explained that to my young daughter when she was 5 years old, because again, always teaching something. Again, to help shape her mind. We have to shape our thinking. I get up every morning, I feel good. Why? Because I tell myself I feel good. I can tell myself I feel bad. I certainly will feel bad. You are what you think. And so those are the things that I think that for me, I do it in schools. I've been in our schools for over 25 years. I enjoy going to career days. In fact, I'll be speaking at Bowie State Friday, and I'm most excited. Whenever I get a chance to come speak to the schools, I just said, man, this is what I should be doing for a living. And when I go to a school, I come in with energy, because the energy, we need energy.
Right.
Everybody needs energy. So we present that energy. So if you ever see our campaign, it's all about energy, because we're hoping that resonates through people. And it will through us educating people on what we should be pouring into our children. Because everything for me goes back to educating our children, who eventually will be adults, and we will have a much smarter society.
Absolutely. And we know for Prince George's County, there's a lot of money in this county.
Yes.
But the education or our school system says something different. So what do you propose that we do?
I think, and that's always been disturbing to me, and I do hear that a lot. How can you all so-called have the greatest amount of wealth, especially for African Americans, but you seem to have the worst school system?
Right.
And that's because everything is politics. Like I said before, we have to take a look at who's been in office, because you can always tell where a politician stands. And I like to consider myself a community advocate versus a politician, because I'm not sure that I fit the bill of a politician, but some of them go hand in hand. But where are the priorities? So if everyone had the priority of education, then the schools will be properly funded. If everyone had concerns about the mental health of our children, then we would have had counselors in our schools years ago. We would have funding, because everything boils down to funding. You have to have funding, because you have to have funding to get the qualified people. Teachers have to be paid properly. If you want, you get what you pay for.
Absolutely.
It's like it's anything else. You get what you pay for. So if you want quality teachers, you have to pay them quality salaries. We know what some of the problems are. At least we have some idea what some of the problems are. This is where experience comes in. I happen to have served as a vice president for a mental health company called Interdynamics. And I was the vice president for government relations, so I understand mental health. I understand education on just about every level, and I understand the need for us to take an active role in ensuring that there's proper fund, anything that I can do.
Right.
If I have a relationship, which I will, with our county council, if I have a relationship, which I do, with our state elected officials, it's all about the relationships, and it's all about pushing priority. And my priority will always be centered around education and public safety and economic development.
Right. Now, climate change is that's a hot button issue
Very much so.
for all of the candidates running this time. So where do you stand on
Well, climate change is really of a federal issue. It really is. And so that's a hot button issue for the presidential candidates. But anything that involves health, Dave Grogan's going to be interested in it. Anything, whether it's green environment, anything that's associated with health is always going to touch my soul. That's all I know. I've been in the health and wellness, whether it's clean air, anything that's involved in health, I'm going to be the champion behind it.
Right, and that's what they tell us. Within the next 10 years, if we don't start making these healthy choices, whether it's food or clean air, clean water, renewables, then we're going to be in some kind of trouble.
We should be asking this question. I think 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, we should have been asking the question, why is our food poisoned with GMO, genetically modified food? And we're probably the only country, we're supposed to be the wealthiest country in the world, but yet we've got the worst food in the world because our food is poisoned. So who was involved in starting or not supporting the idea of modifying our food? Because the food industry is what causes most of our health problems.
Absolutely.
There's two things that cause the health problems. Well, the triggers health problems. Starts with food, and the other is managing stress. And so, but the food will trigger stress, because the bad food is going to have an impact on how we feel and how we look. And that's going to lead to stress, which leads to other medical conditions.
Right, right. Now, how about transportation in Prince George's County?
I think, I watch and I find it interesting, and what startles me about Bowie, and I've been watching a lot closer probably since when I retired in 2013, but I see a lot of buses that ride through, but they're empty. And I'm not sure, again, once I'm elected, I have to find out, you know, if we're running buses, I would think people would need to be on the buses.
Right.
Hopefully we're not wasting money. But we need to pay attention to transportation. We need to make public transportation feasible for everyone. What I do love, I will say this, is our seniors' buses. I notice every day a senior lives in my building, and she has to be like late 80s, but she loves the senior services. She gets up every morning, and the buses come
Wow.
pick them up and take them wherever they need. And that seems to be a very, very productive operation. And it's transportation. And I think, you know, things like that I will be looking to enhance and highlight. Because before my mom passed, I encouraged my mom to move to Bowie simply because of that.
Wow.
And I would always brag about my neighbor that lives under me, how she just gets up, she's so excited to go shopping or go to Walmart or Target or to her doctor's appointments,
Right.
the senior citizens bus ride. So
Right.
we have to pay attention because our seniors and our youth, they're the most vulnerable population.
And that's important. Now, this county, I mean, homes are popping up everywhere. I think we have so, I mean, it's like, don't we have something else to offer besides homes? But just to talk about it, what about fair housing? Where do you stand on fair housing?
I think we have to have fair housing. I share the same concern you just raised. Sometimes when I think of it, and I don't want to bad about another county, but I know when I look at Charles County, Waldorf, the Brandywine area down there, it's very difficult and frustrating to get out of there. It's very difficult to get out of Accokeek, Fort Washington, and those areas because of what you just described from my perspective. There's so many homes, and I'm not sure that the infrastructure or the roads is the priority. I think knowing that, my priority would be to make sure that before I would support building excess amount of homes, that we have the roads and the infrastructure to support it.
Right.
Because I would hate to see us, Bowie, just be this crowded area that there's no way, or there's one way in and one way out, and that's always congested. So I think there's a place for certain types of homes. There's a certain place for townhouses, and I just think we have to pay attention to make sure that whatever we're doing with housing, that it's fair, that we do have fair housing. We don't want to get the reputation of being some place that's unaffordable. And we know some of our neighboring counties and some of our neighboring cities, when people think of housing, it's unaffordable. So I do think that I would be a strong advocate for fair housing pricing. I've heard some talk about rent control. I'm not sure how rent control works, but I would be open to listening to, is rent control something that we should be exploring? But we should be looking at those things, and I'm very conscious of and making sure that we do.
But why can't we get funding for those kinds of things? I mean, I mean, there are bumps and lumps all over the county. Why can't we get that kind of funding to help for infrastructure?
And this is only my perspective, but I think getting funding goes back to the elected officials' priority. And then I think the other part of it is the relationships. Our city council's relationship with our county. A lot of the issues that we think are our issues, the county, a lot of it has to do with the county.
Okay.
And I think everything starts with relationships. And that's another reason why I've always really prided myself on building solid relationships. You know, I know each and every one of our county council people. I've worked on several different campaigns. I've worked on the county executives campaigns, because all of that is relationships building. When relationships are strong, I think better things happen.
Right.
We can't have conflictuous. I don't have conflictual relationships with anyone because it's not healthy.
Right.
You know, I'm good.
Of course.
I'm good with everybody.
Right.
You don't have to be good with me.
Right.
Good, but I'm good with everybody.
Right.
But I think it goes back to the relationships with the state also, the governor's office, state, county, local.
And it's important. It is important to really build that network so that you can reach out to people and say, you know what, this is important to me, it's important to my constituents, you know, we really need to get this working. Now, the other thing that's going on in the county, there's a lot of development, especially with the hospital coming in, but we still do have some places where you go and businesses just, it doesn't look like a business has been there in 20 years. So how do you prepare to work with that? Because economics is
everything is driven.
It's everything, yeah.
I think, knowing what I know about politics now is that if there is an area, because I can go in areas, I'm not going to name any specific areas, but there are places that just look totally neglected. They look like no one cares. See, in my world, the first thing I would want to know who's representing those areas.
Right.
Who's representing those areas that appear to be neglected? And so here in Bowie, the town center is an example that we can use. It's really a crown jewel. Was supposed to be in a financial engine for the city. And their Bowie Town Center seems to be, they're having some troubles there.
Right.
A lot of the stores have moved out, and
Right.
most of them haven't gone far. They've just gone down the street to Crofton. And so we have to get a grip on these things early, because one of the challenges that I think I've seen is that sometimes when we have a problem, it may not be politically correct to admit that we have a problem. And when we're afraid to admit that we have a problem, I don't know how that services the community. I mean, I'm concerned about panhandlers. We've got a growing of panhandlers coming around the town center. The stores are leaving. This should be alarming. Every elected official should be alarmed that every time you turn around, it looks like that can be a vacant, what you described.
Right.
We could potentially have that right here at Bowie Town Center if we don't do something different now.
Right.
And I think we have to acknowledge that there's an issue, and we have to take an active role in making sure that we attract lucrative businesses, and then we support it.
Right.
Our council people support it, our government support it, and we showcase their businesses.
And what would you like to see, you on the council, what would you like to see for the entire Bowie Council to look like? Like, what do you think the challenges are now, and what do you think is going to be like really important for us to kind of turn around some of these challenges?
In an ideal world, I know we don't live in an ideal world, but I do think that I would like to see, I would like to see diversity on the council, but I would also like to see more true community advocates. I think we have to recognize the difference between politicians and community advocates.
Right.
Because a community advocate has a genuine interest in improving the community. I'm not sure what the political politicians are, what their real interests, I'm not sure. But I think that we need people. I would like to be able to vet, if I had it my way, every single body. We need to look in their background. See, this is the law enforcement coming out of me.
Right.
We need to vet these. We need to figure out what are their backgrounds, and where are they coming? Why are they running? Who's supporting them? Where their funding coming from? And so if we start looking at these things, we'll get a much better picture of what kind of person we have. And so I think the diversity, and I think that people that have their own voice. See, when I'm on your council, I can assure you I'm going to have my own voice. I can assure you no one's going to control the David Grogan. No one's going to be able to tell David Grogan. That's why some folk fight against me, because they know that.
Right.
I'm not controllable. And so I would like to see more people on the council who run strong campaigns, that they get elected on their own merit, and they don't get elected by the traditional stabbing behind the scenes people pouring a lot of money. They're going to pour money into people that they control. See, they don't have people pouring too much into me. That's why we work hard. We're going to get the people. We're the people's campaign.
Right, and that's part of your campaign, is integrity.
Integrity. Everything is integrity.
Yeah.
And I would love to see more of that. We've had a lot of challenges, countywide, that even recently, we had a young lady, one of the delegates in, I believe it was District 22, had some troubles, but it seems like we're seeing that more and more. So now I just think it's time that we start looking at the backgrounds of people and checking their integrity. What are their backgrounds? And I'm not suggesting that we do top secret clearances on people or anything like that, but I do think that we need to figure out how do we vet people closely so we don't have people in office for the wrong reasons.
Well, look, I'd like for someone to go as deep in your background as they possibly can.
Well, I want to say that, but I was trying to stay politically correct. If I had it my way, everybody would have a top secret clearance, and I would investigate them. Let me do the background. Let me do the checks, and I'm going to tell you exactly what you have.
I know you would get it. You would get it. And I know that you're like the top cop, and I know the marshals talking to you and some other candidates a couple years ago that there is a lot of strength going in and out of that profession. And so to bring it to problems that we're having today with law enforcement. Yeah, we want the community involved. Yes, we need the good policemen, but with all the things that are coming to us with so many black men, whether they're killed or locked up, how do you bridge that gap? I mean, how do you keep those bad policemen accountable? And what kind of training do you want to see them have?
That's a good question. See, that goes into my expertise in public safety. And I watched the transition. I'm not that old, obviously, but I grew up during the era of officer friendly. I was trained by men who were very well respected law enforcement. I witnessed kids learn by what they see, not by only what we tell them. But I witnessed good policing. I witnessed it, and I always had been around. I was very fortunate. But I also, later in my career, watched the transition to the point where, you know, it's almost embarrassing to be law enforcement. I mean, so many kids would love to be law enforcement, but now the tides have changed, and I watched it. But what we have to do, we really have to get back to the way it used to be. If there is a bad shooting, we need the chief of police, we need the head of the department right here. And we need to find out what his or her stance is on the situation. We don't need to make it political, because the person at the head sets the tone of what happens at the bottom.
Absolutely.
I've managed federal, local, state, and law enforcement. I've managed fugitive operations all over the country. And anybody who worked for Dave Grogan know that I am an advocate against human and civil rights violations. I had a zero tolerance for that. So anyone that worked for me, again, I set the tone. I've never had a problem. I've never had any abnormal complaints. And that's what we have to do. We need to, talking about vetting, we need to vet these chiefs of police. We need to vet the sheriffs. We need to be, but it goes back to the politics, because a lot of these people are appointed by people that are elected. So we need to figure out who's getting elected so we can figure out why do we have these appointments. Because, and these are it goes back to an education. But from the beginning, we need to hold the department, the police department heads accountable, the heads of, whether they're federal, local, state, we need to hold them accountable. If you hold them accountable, then they will hold their staff accountable.
Right, and so we kind of get into that, the money. Where is the money coming from to support these individuals for any office? We know the more money you have.
Yeah, the money comes from special interests. Sometimes developers, business people, there's a lot of special interests that funds political candidates. And they do it in a lot of different ways. And most people really don't know that a campaign finance report is public information. And so if you really want to see where the money is coming from, you can actually go look at a campaign finance report to give you a great idea. And you would be completely surprised where money is coming from. And so it's because people are making an investment in candidates. And so once they make that investment, they have expectations of them. And so going back to what I was saying about a police chief or department head or appointed people, they are appointed by people that are elected. And so if someone spends a lot of money on getting somebody elected, that same person is going to be asking that you appoint or you give consideration to somebody I would like to be in a particular role, just as an example. How sort of politics kind of work. And so we have to pay attention to who's getting elected. It all starts with who's getting elected. Because the election starts with the appointments, and the appointments of chiefs of police is something that we just need to take a look at. And of course, the sheriff is an elected position.
Right, and I mean, I just have to be honest, I was not interested in politics until President Barack Obama came on the scene.
That's right.
That's when I started looking at, okay, the primary means this, you know, the general means that, the judges, all of these, because you know what, if you are not educated on it, you know, it doesn't seem like, you know what, this will have an impact on my life. You know, I don't need to vote because what does it actually do for me? I don't see any changes. But when President Obama became elected, you know, those 8 years, I saw positive change. I saw someone that worked for the people.
I think President Obama is an example of what I think every candidate has a responsibility and every elected official has a responsibility, and that is to get out to vote.
Yes.
And so if we're talking about generations of people who don't vote, the percentage of people that vote in Bowie would blow your mind. It's less than 12% people, and that's because I believe we have to give people a reason to vote, and that's what our candidacy is about, to get out to vote. President Obama is a prime example. He gave people a reason to get out to vote. Marion Barry gave people a reason to get out to vote. We need to do that in the city of Bowie. But the difference, I think, between what President Obama did and what this current president is doing is that I think we were just excited to vote. I don't think we got involved in a lot of the intricate details of what this means and what that means versus what's happening with the current president. I think the current president, for an example, in school, you know, if you ask someone, well, who was President Obama's Secretary of Education? You have no idea. But if you ask who's the Secretary of Education for this president, everyone knows. So I think there was a different interest. I think we were just charged to say we voted. We got somebody that we know in office. But there's benefits in both of them.
Right. Now you have the Rock the Vote. So how can people get involved with the David Grogan Rock the Vote campaign?
Absolutely. It's very simple. DaveGrogan.com. DaveGrogan.com. That's our website. On the front page of our website gives you a venue where you can sign up. And we need all the help we can get. We need all hands on deck. We need everybody involved. Just like everyone came out for President Obama at the presidential election, we need everybody in the city of Bowie to get out and vote. We're going to continue knocking on doors. It's kind of, you know, I guess you know by now I like comedy, so I don't think I was meant to be a comedian, but I do like, see, humor is healthy. It's very therapeutic. It releases endorphins in the brain that keep you happy.
Definitely.
Just another piece right there. But I'm always inspired when we knock on doors and people already know us. So when I walk around, I'm campaigning. I guess I've been doing this for so long now that generally when we knock on the doors or we meet people, they already know us. But what we're going to do now is just focus on getting them to get their neighbors out to vote. Everybody get out to vote and get involved. DaveGrogan.com. Very easy to get involved.
Yes, so you heard it here at the award-winning Ed Brown Show. Rock the Vote. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.